Race fans, it is that time of the year. So after the Super Bowl, which we saw a fantastic game on Sunday night, it is time for racing. From now until the month of November, me and Chris, we are going to give you a lot of the racing stats that you need to know this year. And folks, I have to say this. This is going to be a very interesting season, but yet again, I think this is going to be the most fun season that nobody has ever expected. So everybody's down at Daytona. We're getting ready for Speed Weeks. I know next Sunday is the Daytona 500. Lots to cover tonight. His name is Chris. My name is Corey. And tonight, this is the C&J Speedway Review. And we are finally back. We're finally back on the C&J Speedway Review. And not to mention, guys, we are also finally back into racing from now until November. And I have to tell you, this is going to be the most exciting season yet. I'm looking forward to the races this weekend. I'm also looking forward to everything that's going on in Daytona throughout the whole entire week, especially with all three of the series openers next week as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait. But more importantly, I cannot wait for the season to start. So let's go to the hotline right now, and we are joined by Chris. And I got to ask you this question. So are you definitely like a kid on Christmas morning that racing's finally back?
Oh, I'm certainly getting close, especially with the return of the Busch Clash this Sunday. I believe they're going to the original format. They're going to do everything right. The logo's back the same way it was back in the late 80s, early 90s. We got hot young rookies coming in. We got some really great young drivers that are going to make a stink this year. We've got one champion getting ready to retire at the end of this season. And who knows what other craziness we're going to get. But we start with the Busch Clash, and I believe it's the Arca Menards Series race, both coming up this weekend. And we find out that Hailie Deegan's going to be down there. We find out news of Natalie Decker. There's a lot to unpack tonight. So why don't we dip into the bag of tricks, Corey, and let them know what you've got on the docket.
All right. So for news particles tonight, so apparently it was announced today or yesterday that Ryan Truex is going to be running a part-time schedule for Nice Motorsports this year. So apparently he was going to be running at least 6 races this season. And I got to tell you what, so I look at Truex the last couple of years in the Truck Series, and there's been a couple times where he has came close to winning a race, but then yet again, he's been running like pretty consistently, whenever it comes to the Truck Series. And we saw with Nice Motorsports last year what this team did. They won about, I want to say, 4 or 5 races. They went to the championship 4 with Ross Chastain. Couldn't pull it off, but you just look at this team this year, and now they're adding a list of drivers where I think they could be potential, of not only them scoring a top 10 or top 5, but quite possibly a win. I mean, of course, you got Natalie Decker that's also running a part-time schedule for Nice Motorsports, and also you got Ross Chastain, who's also going to be running a part-time schedule, even though he's running a full-time Xfinity schedule, I want to say. But yet, I think Nice Motorsports is going to pick up from where they left off. We'll just have to see what happens at Daytona. But then yet again, you got Ty Majeski. I think he's going to be running full-time this year for that team. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it goes.
Well, that certainly answered my question, because I was wondering, with all these part-timers coming through the door at Nice Motorsports, were they going to have a full-time field on record? So now that question is answered, we know that those trucks and that team can get to the championship. Just a matter of if the driver can work his magic behind the wheel and get himself to the front of the pack and score a win and a spot in the championship.
Absolutely.
But I think it's great. I think Ryan Truex is one of those guys that really deserves a spot on a team, whether it's the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series. Like you said, he ran real hard all year long, anytime he got behind the wheel, and he was fun to watch. So obviously that turns, hopefully, some eyebrows. They go, let's give this guy a shot. Let's see where we can go with him. The part-time schedule, great, but I would like to see Ryan Truex in a full-time ride come 2021.
I agree too.
So what else you got?
All right, so it was also announced this year that NASCAR alters the Cup Series stage lengths this season. And hold on. So it was also announced that NASCAR alters the Cup stages for this season. So, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. So last year's stage lengths you had 60, 60, and 80. Now this year you have 65, 65, and 70. So basically what they're doing is they're kind of altering the stage lengths up just a little bit, because I kind of felt like, the original distance for the stages, was 120 laps a year ago. This year is pretty much 100. So I kind of think about it, if you make the stages a lot longer, you could probably see some competitive racing. But then yet again, there is going to be some races on the schedule where it might come down to fuel mileage or whatever it is and so forth. But again, with some of the fans, they were saying like, no, don't change the stages, whatever, keep it the way it is. But, it's always every year that NASCAR has to make a rule change whatsoever and so forth. But I will say this though. I'm looking at the stage lengths for the Xfinity series. So this is what they have. So this is what they have for the road course at Indianapolis. You got 20 laps in stage 1, 40 laps in stage 2, and 62 laps in stage 3. So I kind of thought, okay, I think maybe if you add that all up together, I think you probably get maybe like an 80 lap race or something like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's, I do like, how NASCAR kind of upped it up just a little bit, but we'll just see how it goes this year.
I like the stages being a little longer and a little closer to each other. Two short stages and a long stage, just it spreads it too thin. Splitting the race into thirds is a fantastic idea. You'll get pretty much equal parts all the way down, all the cars, all the teams. Yes, you're going to have to learn new strategies. You're going to have to come up with new ideas on how to make the cars run great equal distances versus giving a car really good restart speed or really awesome when they get out in the front and they got clean air. Basically they're shortening the third stage and lengthening the other two. Split it right down the middle, man. Make it like a hockey game. 3 periods. Let's go. And I think it's gonna work out great. The time will be equal. I'm sure they're gonna come up with some other new rule change as far as this is concerned, because like you said, NASCAR every year has to do something to give everybody a headache coming into speed weeks. And the last time I was down in Daytona in 2009, and we go through and we have the pit passes and we're talking to, some of the guys in the garage, they don't like all the rule changes at the last minute. Tell us in December, tell us in early January. Don't tell us the week before we're about to unload these cars and we're working on this one package for weeks and weeks and weeks. Then we get there and you find out everybody has to wear red clown shoes when they drive. You're not helping anybody. But, hey, I like this rule change. I think it's going to be a winner.
I think it is, too.
Now, how many people, I know you got a lot of racing groups out there. You got your NASCAR, IndyCar Central, obviously C&J Speedway Review Group. When they started doing stage racing, a lot of people were bent out of shape, and it's difficult to try to explain to someone that has this much hatred in their heart for it. It's not unlike going to your local track and seeing, 3 heats, 2 heats, and then the final race. It's the same thing. It's just with better cars and better drivers and a bigger, grander stage. It's been around for a couple of years now. What is the prevailing thought on some of your pages? Do people like the stage racing? Are they still trying to get their feet wet with it? What's going on?
Well, basically right now, I'm just only focusing on one page. So I'm just only focusing on the C&J Speedway page for now, because doing 2 pages was just too much of whatever it is and so forth. But it is funny because I do have a friend of mine that doesn't really understand the stages kind of well, and I kind of taught him, how they fared out. But I would say to me, like, ever since this whole stage lane came in a couple of years ago, everybody thought, they're changing the whole NASCAR thing around. It's going to be, crappy thing that they're going to do. But I had to tell you, I think it's kind of a good idea because, it breaks the races down by like 3. But then yet again, like, yes, it does, look like, you go to like a local short track, have like the heats or whatever it is. But But what I think it does, I think it makes it a lot more competitive, but I think it makes it more exciting rather than, watching like a full race, not knowing like when the next caution's going to come out, whatever, and so forth. But I think the stages are here to stay, and I think it makes it more exciting, and that's how it is.
Absolutely, and I think it levels the playing field a bit too. The one race two races come to mind. I don't quite remember the year on the second one. The first one, because I was there, the 1996 Mountain Dew Southern 500 in Darlington. They just got, Jeff Gordon gets out there. He's got clean air. He is being trailed by Kenny Schrader and Jimmy Spencer. At the end of 368 laps, they were the only 3 cars on the lead lap. They were that good, but it was just right. After a while, you're just like, okay, let it go. The other one was the Jeff Burton race in the 90s in New Hampshire, where he led all 300 laps, which is great. The pit strategy was great, but it's the same guy. It's like playing NASCAR Heat. Once you get out front, no one's touching you. So
right.
Give us some competition, and I think that's exactly what they're doing.
It's like pretty much playing like NASCAR Heat on like easy mode or something like that. But however, to answer the question, the one where you said that Jeff Burton won in New Hampshire back in like 2000, that was the only race in New Hampshire that NASCAR ever used carburetor restrictor plates.
Yeah, I remember that. That was right after the Adam Petty and Kenny Irwin incidents.
Correct.
Because the throttles were sticking. I remember that.
Yep.
Wow. What Kenny Irwin could have been, man, if he had just lived. Adam Petty, too. Wow.
Right.
You don't think about him very often, but then your names come up and you're just like, wow, they were awesome.
Right.
Oh, darn it, Corey. You're gonna make me tear up inside.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got?
Well, to make this more teary-eyed, it was also announced last week that John Andretti passed away, and he ended up losing his battle with cancer last week. And sad for the Andretti family. The one thing that I will remember the most was when he was driving the 43 car for Richard Petty when he won at Martinsville that one time. And then, of course, he got his first career win at Daytona when he was driving for Kelly Yarborough. But, and it's funny because I have 2 friends of mine that are really close to the Andrettis. I probably say John mostly because my good friend Eric, who does Window World, or actually, it's funny because John did actually sponsor Window World not too long ago. It was like a couple years ago from what I remember. But yeah, so John will be dearly missed. And, he brought a lot to the sport. He had that good smile. But yet again, he was a competitive racer. And I will say this, though. John Andretti actually, it's a fun fact because John Andretti became the first ever driver to do the Indianapolis-Charlotte double.
Yep. And just one of those good guys. Whenever you saw him on television or you saw him, at the haulers when you go to the races and they sign autographs, always a smile on his face. You never saw him bent out of shape. If he did that stuff, he left it behind closed doors. But I just, like you said, you always remember when you saw John Andretti, big smile on his face, just having the best time doing what he loved to do, and that was racing. So, yeah, definitely a terrible loss for the Andretti family and all of motorsports in general.
Indeed.
Okay. So, what are we going to talk about first? You want to talk about Arca? You want to talk about Busch Clash? Do you want to talk about the fact that we are just days away from the cars pulling in down A1A, Beachfront Avenue?
Let's start with Arca first.
All right. Well, you're the Arca guru. You're the guy. You're the one. So why don't you lead the way and tell us what we need to know about this weekend's Arca Menards race?
Okay, so just in case if anybody's aware, so a year ago, NASCAR ended up buying the Arca Menards series. So now, basically what it is you're going to have it in like 3 series whatsoever. So you got the Arca Menards series, which for the schedule, they are going to be racing at Daytona, which is the first race on Saturday. And not only that, you also got Phoenix, Salem Speedway, Talladega, Charlotte, Mid-Ohio, Michigan, Chicago, Pocono, Lucas Oil Raceway in Indianapolis, Elko, Iowa, Gateway, Madison, Watkins Glen, Illinois, DuQuoin, State Fairgrounds, Bristol, Memphis, and Kansas Speedway. And then, of course, kind of make it a little bit short. So you have the Arca East and West Series, which that used to be the K&N East and West Series. So now that's also now a part of Arca. And then, of course, also that you have the Sioux Chiefs Showdown, which that also is going to be breaking down by about 10 races and so forth. But without further ado, so you got Saturday's race at Daytona, the Lucas Oil 200 driven by General Tire, which, of course, it is the official tire of the Arca Menards series. So looking at the entry list, I'm only going to read probably about a few notable names on here, but a couple that stand out. You know, you have Natalie Decker that's going to be driving the 4-car for, was it DGR Crosley? And then you also have, let's see, Michael Self. You have Natalie Decker, also a NASCAR regular as well. And then you also have Brett Holmes. And then, of course, you know, we also have Andy Seiss, who's going to be driving the O2 car this weekend.
Very cool. I'm going to try to catch some of this race. Saturday is usually a tough day for me, but sure, I'll find it somewhere. They usually replay the ARCA races late at night, and I am a bit of a night owl, so I'll probably catch it somewhere. I look forward to it. Anytime I can see some of the young upstarts of motorsports get out there and do their thing, it's awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Hailie Deegan and what she can do going forward in the ARCA Menards series now that she's going to be doing that. You know, I used to love the ARCA races back in the 80s. You watch the guys come up, the guys like Rusty Wallace and Mark Martin and Dick Trickle, and then they become, you know, Cup Series regulars. For those of you who have never watched a race like this, get out there and watch this race on Saturday. Have fun. Look at some of these future stars, because if you're not looking for them, you get blindsided when they come in. You're not paying attention. You might say, hey, remember I watched that ARCA race and I saw Hailie Deegan, and now she's coming up strong. You'll see the stars of tomorrow today if you watch the ARCA Menards Series race on Saturday.
Don't forget, guys, the race is on at 4:30 on FS1, so make sure you guys tune in. I actually have the race on DVR and on Saturday too, but I will be able to catch it on Saturday night as well. But one other guy that, you know, I also noticed that is also coming up to NASCAR as well is Christian Eckes. And remember, guys, so Eckes won the ARCA Menards Championship last year, and now he's going to be running full-time for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the Truck Series this year.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to bet against Christian Eckes. Not only is he running for KBM, but, again, won that championship. And he came on strong at the end of that season, really strong. So, like Corey said, keep your eye on this guy. Watch the race on Saturday. And if there's radio coverage and you happen to find it in your local area, I know in Florida, every piece of Speed Weeks is on one of the sports channels down there. I remember that vividly from the times I used to go down there every year. What a great town. I love Daytona. If you're out and about down there, have fun, be safe, just enjoy it, man. It's a great time, a great place to go see racing, and it's a beautiful part of the country.
And a little quick notable too. So the ARCA Menards E-Series starts up Monday, February 10th at New Smyrna Speedway in Florida, and then the ARCA Menards West Series will be starting on Thursday, February 20th at the Bull Ring at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, not Super Speedway.
Listen to you go. Been off bi-weekly for 3 months, and you forgot the name of the speedway.
I'm like, oh, he was sharp the night we saw him.
Awesome. So, man, the main event for this particular week that we're talking about, from our broadcast tonight to next Wednesday, is easily the Busch Clash. For those of you who have never seen the Busch Clash, Corey is going to describe how this works, and hopefully we'll have a list of drivers that are entered into this year's Clash.
All right, so the Busch Clash this year is basically going to be 75 laps. So this is actually an exhibition race, which kind of kicks off the start of the season, you know, at Daytona, and they've been running this race ever since 1979. A little bit that stands out. So the driver that has the most wins in this race was Dale Earnhardt, who ended up winning 6 races in the Busch Clash at the time. And then other notable names, you also have guys like Mark Martin, who won the Busch Clash in 1999. You have Tony Stewart, who's won, I believe, 3 times in this event. The last time he won was 2007, but other than that, he won 2001 and 2002. Dale Earnhardt Jr. won this race twice in 2003 and '08. Kevin Harvick, who also won this event in 2009, 2010, and 2013. And then, of course, a year ago, Jimmy Johnson, which, of course, got a win, but he ended up winning in the non-points race, so it wasn't a points race whatsoever, but he also got his second Busch Clash win. It was the second win since 2005. And actually a little bit of a fun fact for you, and I'm going to give this a little question for you. So who was the last driver to win the Busch Clash from the pole?
Rusty Wallace.
Nope.
Okay, I give up.
All right. It was Ken Schrader.
Wow, okay.
Yep.
89 or 90?
I think it was 89.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
But Ken Schrader is a two-time winner in this event. And it's actually funny because, speaking of Rusty Wallace, he actually did win this event back in 1998.
Yes, he did. The Adventures of Rusty car, all blue, the white deuce on the side. It was the commercials that were leading up to the Daytona 500, The Adventures of Rusty. They were really weird commercials, but that was the sponsor on the car. I had that diecast for a long time.
Yeah.
Wow, I have so much fun, and I'm looking forward to this week's event. Can you tell us who's in it this year?
All right, so what the format's going to be, so it's going to be a 25 opening lap segment, and then it's going to be as a likely phone.
I lost you there for a minute.
Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. That was a scam likely phone that just came on. So.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Anyways, so the opening segment, you have 25 laps, and then you have a final 50 lap segment. And let's see. So how the Clash goes, you have the guys that have won pole awards from a year ago, former Clash winners who competed full time in the previous seasons, former Daytona 500 winners who competed full time in the previous season, former Daytona 500 pole winners who competed full time in the previous season, and drivers who qualified for the playoffs a year ago are in this event.
Okay, so all your usual suspects.
All right. So the guys that are in the Clash this year, you have Eric Almirola, you have Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Boyer, Kyle Busch, defending series champion, Kurt Busch, William Byron, Austin Dillon, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Daniel Hemrick, which of course he's not competing this year, Jimmy Johnson, Eric Jones, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Ryan Newman, of course Daniel Suarez, which he's not going to be competing this year either. And then, of course, Martin Truex Jr.
Okay. Now, this is not one of those races we usually make picks for. I never want to make a pick going into this race. I just like to sit back, hear those engines roar, see them hurtling around at 200 miles an hour, and just remind myself that this is one of my favorite times of the year. You got the Super Bowl, you got Daytona, Speed Weeks. This weekend, for those of you who care, football still is going on, but it's kind of like cheap knockoff football, but I'll be watching the XFL.
Right.
But it's just a really cool time of year. Not only do you have the events that I mentioned, but spring training starts up real soon. Pitchers and catchers report in 9 days. This is February. It's easily one of the most exciting months on the sports calendar if you're a fan of all these sports. And, of course, hockey's in full swing as well.
Of course.
And if you're a guy like Corey, and I don't begrudge him, you like the Boston Celtics, you like basketball, man, you're right in the heart of basketball season too. It's really, really cool. It's a great time to be a sports fan, especially a great time to be a racing fan. But you know what? I'm just glad we're returning to roots. It's the Busch Clash again. No more shootout at the Gimmick and the Budweiser Circle Race or all the other names that they've given to it over the years.
No more Advanced Auto Parts Clash, which I thought that was kind of a dumb way of naming that.
It just doesn't roll off the tongue. The Bud Shootout, that rolls off your tongue. The Busch Clash, that rolls off your tongue. Like years ago when the Twin 125 became the Gatorade Duel at Daytona, it just sounds right. But much like some of the Truck Series races, nobody needs a tongue twister. the Rubbermaid Tote 500 sponsored by GE light bulbs and driven by Castrol Motor Oil 300 in defense of autism. Whatever.
Right.
No, stop it. Simple is beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So with that in mind, the rest of the week, I know Thursday will be the qualifying races next week, not tomorrow, kids. Next Thursday will be the qualifying races.
Yep. And
So,
also don't forget Sunday before the Clash race. You also have Daytona 500 qualifying, which I saw, and I'm gonna pop up on the entry list real quick. And that's not the right one. So I'm gonna give me 2 seconds. So
right.
So it looks like
okay. Go ahead.
So it looks like 43 drivers are going to be running this race, and let's see, it's pretty much 40 that make the field. So I'm looking at the entry list right here. So it looks like I want to say 3 are probably going to go home after next Thursday.
And usually that's one of the fun parts about Daytona is while I'm closing up my Barks root beer, sponsored by Barks. Barks has bite.
Right.
So one of the cool things has always been about Daytona is we don't qualify this race like every other race of the season. This one, you have only the first 2 positions that'll be determined by the Sunday's qualifying. Then you go to the duels at Thursday, whether the Gatorade duels, whatever duels they are. They're the 2 125-mile events.
Duels now.
Okay. So you have the 2 125-lap features, or is it 125 miles? Doesn't matter, same.
Right.
The first race determines the odd numbers. The second race determines the even numbers. And you will watch, as you watch the duels on Thursday, you'll see green next to their name or yellow or red. They're on the bubble. They're in a transfer position. All this craziness going on, trying to figure out who's going where. And oftentimes you have the 2 guys that have already qualified 1 and 2 in these races. So then that just throws a whole new monkey wrench into the system.
Right.
Because now you have an extra guy. You finish 15th. You think you're going into the race in 31st, and that might knock you out. You never know. Right. But it's the most exciting way to start a season is to have these dual races, have the qualifying set up just the way it is. 2 weeks of nothing but burning rubber and burning gasoline on the beach in Daytona. Oh, God, I love it. I love it. It's Christmas.
Oh, I love it too. Yep. Exactly.
Now I'm getting excited. I was excited before, and now I'm getting excited. Blinders, focus, Danielson, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have anything else? I mean, this could end up being a very short episode tonight because we don't have a lot to go over. You had some questions that you wanted to pose that you put up on the website regarding 5 guys who are going to make a splash at Daytona, and which one of them is going to collect the first one of the year of the 5.
Not only a splash at Daytona, but also some of the guys that that could possibly have a breakout year this season. So I'm going to give you a list of drivers, and you tell me which one. I'd probably say this. I'll give you a list of drivers, and I'll say like pretty much scale of 1 to 10, on this guy and whatever so forth.
On what subject, Daytona, or who's going to collect a win in 2020?
Collecting a win in 2020.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
Yep. All right. So leading off, door number 1, you have the driver that's going to be running the 41 car this year for Haas Automation Ford, the 41 car of Cole Custer, and scale of 1 to 10 on him winning a race in 2020.
I'm going to give him 7.5. Again, we will see what Speed Weeks has to offer when we see Custer in a cup car out there competing with the big boys in what I'm not going to disparage any other teams, but we know Stuart Haas is a big boy ride. They're one of the majors. So he's got good equipment. So did Suarez. So did Danica. So did a lot of other guys that have come and gone. Custer, I think, has again. I don't want to get on the Suarez thing. That's old news. That's 2019. We're talking about 2020 here. I'm looking at Cole Custer, 7.5. Basically, a real good chance that he's going to collect a win this season. Absolutely.
All right. So for me, I'm definitely going to give him a 7. And of course, Daytona, it's unpredictable. You just never know what's going to happen. But I'm going to give him a 7 this year. I'm going to see what he does in that 41 car this year. And like I said, the 41 car, it was a top ride. It was good with Kurt Busch. It was good with Suarez partially. But now that he's moved up to the Cup Series, and of course, if you look at his stats from 2018, he only has like about 3 Cup starts. Didn't make a Cup start a year ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in this ride, but I think he could probably pull off a win, if not maybe, maybe a top 5 or a top 10 or so forth.
Sure, I'll buy it. Absolutely.
Yep.
Who's next?
All right. Door number 2, the driver of the 95 car for Levine Family Racing, which is Christopher Bell. And of course, he's moving up to the Cup Series this year. Scale of 1 to 10 on him winning a race in 2020.
God, I have to give 2 votes for this, and I'll give reasons behind both votes. Based on skill alone, I would give him a 7 or an 8. We've seen it for the last 2 years. No matter what Bell gets behind the wheel of, he finds a way to get to victory lane. The realism is that 95 team, while an offshoot of Joe Gibbs Racing, still doesn't get the most spectacular equipment ever. So we saw the struggles that Casey Kane had in the 95 and Matt DiBenedetto had in the 95 and other guys over the years. I think if you were gonna move Bell up, you got to give him a top ride. But then again, when you look at JGR, who do you move? Seriously, you don't move Hamlin, you don't move Busch, you don't move Truex. About the only one left, the odd man out, is Eric Jones. And even then, Eric Jones is delivered in the 20 car. So Christopher Bell being moved into that 95, while amazing, I think realistically, talent, I'd give him an 8 to win. But let's be realistic with this car. He's 50-50. I'd give it a 5.
All right. I'd probably say for me, I could probably give him like maybe an 8 or something like that. But yeah. Of course, Levine Family Racing, they are aligned with Joe Gibbs Racing. And of course, we saw this team a year ago, they had some consistent runs with the Benedetto. Sure, they almost won the race at Bristol. And then, of course, they and a couple other races, they kind of fell flat. But I look at this team this year, and I think, Levine Family Racing is going to pick up from where they left off a year ago. But, of course, you got a young guy that's coming in. And the funny fact is that, he's never made a Cup start. He's only ran an Xfinity and the Truck Series the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does off the gate at Daytona. But I would have to say, if the first win comes for him, it's probably going to be on a 1.5 miles, because that's what Christopher Bell's strong suit was in the Xfinity Series a year ago when he won a bunch of races on the 1.5 miles. And not only a year ago, but like 2 years ago also. So, yeah, I mean, I do want to see him get a win. I think I agree with what you said, too. No matter what car he gets in, he just drives the wheels off it and just goes out and wins.
But when you go to those 1.5 miles, you have to remember there are guys like Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, guys that have just beaten the snot out of these 1.5 miles and left everybody in the dust for the last 3 years when it comes to those tracks. It's going to be difficult, even though he's a master of the 1.5 miles. Now you're going up against the big boys. This isn't big fish, small pond anymore. He's going up there against true heavyweights. This would be a lot like watching one of us fight Brock Lesnar in the octagon.
Right.
It's going to be difficult, but hey, anybody can win on any given Sunday or Saturday, depending on when they're running.
Exactly.
So what's behind the next door?
All right. Door number 3, you have the 2-time Xfinity Series champion, driver of the number 8 Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing, Tyler Reddick. So this one's going to be an interesting one on both of us, but I'm going to say this. Scale of 1 to 10 on him winning a race in 2020.
Oh, okay. The more I look back on it, watching Tyler Reddick come up through the ranks, the first year he won the championship in the Xfinity Series, nobody gave him a chance. We were looking at Bell and Custer. You go to the second year when he did it back to back. Who are we talking about? Bell and Custer, until somewhere mid-season Reddick started to creep his way in, and we both said it. You can't count out the champ. He's going to come up strong,
Right.
wins himself a couple races, gets himself into the playoffs, and wouldn't you know who won the pony come Miami in November? It was Tyler Reddick.
Right.
So he makes the move to the 8 car for RCR on the Cup Series. Again, not going back to the Daniel Hemrick thing, much like the Daniel Suarez thing. I think it's a raw deal, but I do think Reddick is that much better than Daniel Hemrick. So I'm going to give him a 6.
All right. So for me, I'm going to give him maybe a 7.5 or an 8. I'm probably leaning towards the 8, but if you look at his Cup starts last year, of course, the one race that really stands out to me the most was pretty much Kansas, when he ended up finishing in the top 10. And I thought to myself, with this run, that he did, with a top 10 finish like that, he's definitely going to be in the Cup Series for sure. And then, of course, that's when, we got the word that Richard Childress was letting go Hemrick at the end of the season, which, of course, we were all like, all right, as soon as that happens, they're definitely going after Reddick for sure. But you just look at Reddick's Xfinity Series the last 2 years. Yes, the one where he won the first championship, nobody picked him to win. I mean, it was basically going to be Christopher Bell or Cole Custer either way. But you look at the Xfinity Series a year ago. Sure, everybody was leaning towards Cole Custer and Christopher Bell. But then, of course, you have Reddick that came into the weeds, and he was pretty much like, all right, you two guys are pretty much the dominant ones, but I'm here also. But, it was just basically a 3-horse battle for the championship a year ago. And that's what I really liked about it the most, was all these young guys that were 26 and under that were battling for the Xfinity Championship, and now that are going to be running for the Cup Series Rookie of the Year this year. But, again, Daytona and Talladega, we all know what Richard Childress Racing does on the super speedways. They're dominant. They know how to win races, and they know how to run up front no matter what matters the most. So the reason why I'm giving Tyler Reddick an 8 is I really want to see what him and Austin Dillon do at Daytona. Now, chances are, one of those guys could win the 500. One of those guys could be leading at Daytona until the last lap. But, again, during the season, for him, I'm going to say maybe his first win, if it doesn't come to Daytona, it's probably going to come on a 1.5 miles. Same as possibly Christopher Bell as well.
Okay. Can't argue with any of that. Absolutely.
Right.
Door number 4.
All right. So the next one, which, of course, he is in his 3rd Cup Series season, entering in his 3rd Cup Series season, and that guy is the guy who is driving the 24 car of William Byron. So, scale of 1 to 10 on him winning a race in 2020, and does he get his first career win this year?
Wow. I was just talking about William Byron with a gentleman at work today. What are his chances? What are his chances? He's got a good chance. You're in a Hendrick car. You have the equipment. We have seen William Byron do some really good stuff with a race car, but the one thing we haven't seen him do is win. Is this the year he shatters the glass ceiling? I'm going to say yes. So I'm definitely going to give him a 9. He's got a really good shot at winning this year. He's just got to get over whatever it is. When he gets up into that second position, it's almost as if he doesn't know how to pass that lead car to take the win. We'll find out this season. I think right now he's the second best candidate to win a race of the 5 you're mentioning.
I mean, I do agree as well, and I'm probably going to give him maybe a 6, probably a 6.5, because you just look at Hendrick Motorsports last year, they've only won like about 3 races with Chase Elliott, but then yet again, Jimmy Johnson, he struggled, and then William Byron, I mean, he was consistent most of the year, but then there were times where he just basically, couldn't capitalize, in a couple of races that he had last season, but let's remember, he does have a crew chief, which has won 7 championships before. And this kind of compares me to when Jeff Gordon started coming into the sport, and little did he know, he has Ray Evernham as crew chief. So it didn't take until 1994 when Jeff Gordon won 2 races that year. And then after 94, that's when everything took off, when Jeff ended up winning 4 championships. And, of course, he won, I want to say, 3 with Ray Evernham, and then 1, I want to say, with Robbie Loomis. But yeah, I think this is probably the year where the 24 is going to get the hump off their back. And like I said, Daytona, the Hendrick guys have also been good at Daytona, every time, and this usually happens, once in a lifetime, maybe every year, but every year, the Hendrick guys always bring a good car for qualifying. You'll have two of their cars on the front row, and then, they'll win the qualifying races. But then in the 500, they couldn't capitalize. But I think this is probably the year I could see Byron maybe getting a win or so. If not, he could probably have another consistent year.
Well, I agree. We're having a real good discussion here tonight, man. I'm enjoying this. All right, door number 5.
Okay, so I saved the best one for last. So door number 5 is the guy that's going to be driving the 21 car this year, and that guy is named Matt DiBenedetto. So Chris is going to love this one. So on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the chances of DiBenedetto winning a race in 2020?
13.5. No, seriously, I'm gonna give it a solid 10. We saw what he could do last year in the beginning of the season, starting with Daytona, leading the most laps before he got taken out. Really great runs throughout the year. Finds out he's a lame duck halfway through the season. The outpouring of support, and then he goes out and he just keeps giving better performances week after week after week. He's primed to break through, and I will give him a 75% chance of winning the Sunday's Daytona 500 on the 16th.
All right. So for me, I'm going to give him probably an 8. Maybe an 8 or a 7.5.
Good night, folks. Show's over.
Come on. But anyways, so I'm going to give him a 7.5 or an 8 because let's face it, he's in a car that's affiliated with Team Penske. So if you look at his stats last season, the only time where he started getting consistent was pretty much after Sonoma. After Sonoma, he finished in the top 5, and then of course, he ends up finishing in the top 10 at Daytona. But then everywhere else, rather than his worst finishes of 27th at Chicago, 17th at Pocono, 20th at Michigan, there were some races where he was finishing in the top 10 like almost every week. But again, the 21 car, it's affiliated by Team Penske, so he's basically driving a Ford Penske car. And like I said, the Wood brothers, they also have a good super speedway program, which of course, they've run good at Daytona and Talladega as well. And it wouldn't surprise me quite a bit if he wins the Daytona 500 next Sunday. I think, and I'm going to give this out right now. I think he's got a 75% chance of winning the 500 if everything goes his way, B, if he avoids the big wrecks, and C, where everything pretty much matters most, if he's in second, he's not going to have anything to lose. But then yet again, when you're running second on the last lap, you have to have some friends to draft with you. But I think this is going to be a fun year. I think this is going to be interesting to see what Matt can do in that 21 car. And I have some really, really high hopes for him this year.
Well, one other person that has high hopes for him, he wanted me to mention, is our good friend Loki from the Loki and Jabroni show. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. You picked Bubba Wallace to be his kind of draft and follow guy. And he said to me about a week ago, he says, yeah, I can't do this Bubba Wallace thing anymore. Pick me a driver. I says, oh, it's too easy. You're going to root for Guido, number 21, Matt DiBenedetto. Is he good? I explained the whole thing to him. He goes, okay, that's my guy. So right. coming in fresh after years of not watching NASCAR, he's going to pay a little more attention this year. Mike is full on Guido Nation. So we're going to see just how this plays out. Now, going back to the Busch Clash on Sunday, where and when can the people watch and or listen to this race?
Okay, so let me just get this out right now. Excuse me. So Sunday you have the Busch Clash, February 9th. Let's see, 3:00 Eastern time on FS1, and then of course streaming live on the Sirius XM satellite radio. Unfortunately, I do not have Sirius satellite radio anymore because I canceled my subscription. Don't know why. Long story, but yeah, I couldn't afford to pay it, but that's pretty much for another time. But anyways, so for anybody who has Sirius XM satellite radio, make sure you guys listen to the Motor Racing Network,
the voice of NASCAR.
All right.
So if there's nothing else, my question for you is on Sunday, the 16th, I'm getting up bright and early in the morning. I'm going to shower. Hopefully, these shaggy locks will be gone. I'll have a proper haircut for when I come up, hopefully, if I, get off my dead lazy butt and go get a haircut. Picking up our good friend Zach Kuhn, friend of the show, and we are coming to the Italian restaurant known as the Huffnagel Mansion up there in Peabody, Massachusetts, not before I make a stop at Bunghole Liquors. My question for you is, the party is coming, man. Are we going to have any prizes, games, pools? What's going on? Are we going to have pick a name out of a hat and win a prize?
Yeah, we're going to do that. Well, this is how I do it. So normally what I do is I do a little pick a driver out of the hat type of thing. And, I just kind of do it for fun, whatever. And I remember last year, we did it last year, for a prize, and basically it's a gift card and from like Amazon or something like that. But yeah.
Okay. Break my heart. Wow. Okay. Because all of us use Amazon. And if you use Amazon, go to lokinjabroni.com, click on our Amazon affiliate, and do some shopping.
Right.
That means you too, Corey. I know you're shopping.
Well, which yet again, if, somebody does win the Amazon card, that would probably be the best way for you to advertise, the Loki and Jabroni show too. So.
Oh, you have no idea how much I'm going to pimp that show out to everybody, because April is our 5th anniversary, and we've got big things coming up. I'll tell you that close to the end, as we get closer to the end of the show, because some of these, I can't mention one guest. It's not confirmed. But the other 3 weeks, we have 3 fantastic guests, and it's going to be fun. And if you're not listening to the show, well, then darn it, why aren't you?
Right.
And that means you too, Corey. Why aren't you?
Yeah, I know. I got to start listening to that more.
There you go. I'll take your phone. I'll subscribe you. I'll subscribe Zach. Jeff, don't call me Bud Selig. We're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be good. And I hear Jeff wants to take down an entire cheese pizza by himself.
Jeez.
This I want to see.
He was just telling me that earlier, and I also want to say I think he's watching the show right now. Jeff.
Well, all right. Jeff, don't call me Bud Selig. I look forward to seeing you. And Jeff is waving at me right now on the Facebook gimmick.
Yeah, so, Jeff is probably waving like this, So yeah, so I just want to give a little shout out to my good friend Jeff, and oh my goodness, I really want to call him Special Jeff right now, but I don't know if that's going to be But no, it's actually funny because, I call him that, all the time, and he doesn't care, quite a bit, but
okay.
And actually, I told Jeff about that, too, and, he kind of laughed at that,
Well, I do want to say this before we go into pimps and plugs, is that this coming Wednesday, I will have a brand new notebook sitting here in front of me for the 2020 Chris versus Corey t-shirt battle, the picks, the points, and just this fun that we had last year.
Jeffrey says hello.
Who does?
Jeffrey says hello.
Hello, Jeffrey. Now leave us alone.
Yeah.
We're trying to be professionals.
Leave us alone for a little bit. Yes.
Right. No, but once we start doing the picks, guys, Corey and I talked about it 2 weeks ago on the show. It's going to be less race recap and less, future race breakdown. Corey did a great thing at the last episode. Started to give the Vegas odds on the different drivers for the race. We thought that was pretty fun. So there's going to be some eliminations to how we cover the races. We may not have happies and sads. We may just go, straight into, here's how it went. Here's like a 5-minute breakdown of each race. Boom. We want more time to have more conversation and to give you more of probably what you want, rather than, Austin Dillon ran good, but then he got into this wreck, and you all saw the race, and we're just talking over ourselves and blah-de-da-de-da-de-da-de-da. It all comes down to how they finished, the picks, the points. Maybe we'll keep happy and sad. That was always a good one. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, happy and sad, I like that too.
But I think we're going to do a little less jibber-jabbering about, the racing and et cetera, so forth. Give you the breakdown. Here's how the stages went. There was a major wreck, took out these 3 guys, but here's your finishing order. going to streamline it just a little bit, but it's going to be fun. We had a lot of fun doing these Vegas odds breakdowns. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I do have the opening odds for the Busch Clash. If you want to go through that.
Sure, why not? And then we'll do our plugs.
All right. So real quick, and I'm also gonna have to have you pick a winner, and we're both gonna have to pick a winner for the Busch Clash. But anyways, so leading off, Austin Dillon, opening odds 25-1.
Okay, not bad.
And let's see, Ryan Newman odds are 25-1 as well.
Oh, I would think he would be a little bit higher. I think his odds should be in the teens, if anything.
Yeah. All right. Next one, Eric Jones, 20-1.
Okay, that's solid.
Yep. Next one, 20-1, Kyle Larson.
Considering his season last year, yeah, it's a good bet.
Yep. Next one, Martin Truex Jr., 16-1.
Should be a little higher. Truex is always scary in the beginning parts of any Daytona race. Doesn't always finish the best, but he's always in the mix.
Yep. Next one, you have Alex Bowman, 16-1.
Lower. He should be like 25-1.
Yep. Next one, Jimmy Johnson, last year's Clash winner, is at 16-1.
His numbers should be he should be in like the tens, like the 10, 9, 8, that kind of thing. It's Daytona, it's the Clash, it's Jimmy Johnson. He's going to be a force.
Yep. Next one, 16-1 for William Byron.
That's good. I agree with that one.
And next one, Clint Boyer at 16-1.
Yeah, okay. Not the greatest Daytona driver ever, but another guy who, if you blink, he's going to get up there and he's going to challenge.
Yep. Next one, Eric Almirola, 16-1.
Good. Nice. That makes sense.
And now we're in the lower numbers now. So we have Kurt Busch at 12-1.
Yep, I'll buy it.
And next one we have Kevin Harvick at 12-1.
Should be in the single digits. Former Daytona champion. He's won this race 3 times before. It should be in the single digits.
All right. Next one, defending series champion and winner of the Clash back in 2012, Kyle Busch.
That's a good set of odds for him. For those of you who don't watch and listen to us on audio only, FKB came back up again. Had to do it.
Yeah. All right. Next one, Ryan Blaney, 10-1.
Should be more in the teens. That's being very generous to Blaney, although he is a Penske car, and those Fords look great at Daytona every year.
Yep. Next one, Chase Elliott, 10-1.
That's a good one.
And next one, Denny Hamlin at 10-1.
I might put Hamlin a little bit lower, 5-1, maybe a 3-1.
And last but not least, you have the 2 Penske drivers, Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, which their opening odds right now are 8-1.
Yeah, okay, absolutely. Logano and Keselowski, when you go to the super speedways, they're always in the hunt. And again, you've got that Penske power behind you, especially, in the last couple of years, they have been awesome. So yeah, they deserve the spot they're in. Absolutely.
All right. Real quick before we close out, Chris, who is your winner for the Busch Clash on Sunday?
Well, I'm going to have the pick from my heart and the pick from my head. So the pick from my heart obviously is going to be the number 4 of Kevin Harvick. But if I'm picking from my head and knowing how crazy it's going to be, I could just say I choose the field, but I won't do that. I think when we come out of Sunday, we are going to see Martin Truex Jr. win that race.
I was actually going to pick the same. I was going to pick the same driver too. I'm going to say Truex wins the race on Sunday. I think he's a good super speedway racer, and I think he's going to have a lot of help this weekend too. But another guy that you also want to watch out for too, and a guy that knows how to win this race before, is Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin, remember back in 2006, he won this race as a rookie, so he's won this race a couple times before. So I think it's going to come down between the Gibbs guys, and I think it's mostly going to come down to the Ford drivers. So I don't know, and not unless you have the manufacturer teammates working together. But it's a short race. It's only like 18 drivers that are in this field. But yeah, Truex is going to be my winner and pretty much my pick.
And it's a winner-take-all scenario, a lot like your All-Star race later in the year.
Right.
This isn't for points. It's more for the cash prize money and the bragging rights. Hey, I'm the Clash winner of 2020. I won in 2019, et cetera, so forth. It's fun. It opens the season. It's exciting. It gets us all stirred up and happy for race season. So anything can happen. We've seen surprise winners in the past. We might get one this year. You never know. But Truex is a real solid pick.
Yeah.
All right. So, Corey, this is the part where you're going to pimp, plug, and otherwise push upon the people. I will follow you.
All right. So follow us on the C&J Speedway Review on Facebook. Make sure you guys like us, subscribe, and you guys will get notifications on when we go live and everything else and so forth. Twitter, we're at CJ Speedway, and then Instagram. Wait, let me start that over. Twitter, we are at CJ_Speedway, and then Instagram, we are at CJ Speedway. And like I said, guys, we are looking forward to the NASCAR season of 2020. I'm looking forward to all three series starting up. I'm looking forward to the racing this year. I think it's going to be exciting. I cannot wait for Daytona. I cannot wait to see what this season can bring. And all I can just say is, the playoffs this year, I think it's going to be a lot more exciting and a lot more competitive, considering the fact you got Phoenix as the championship race this year as well. So, again, it's going to be interesting, and I cannot wait, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as I'm concerned, check out the Loki and Jabroni Show, the flagship of the Focus Digital Network. April is our 5th anniversary. 3 guests for April confirmed. We have mega podcaster from Crime and Sports and Small Town Murder, Mr. Jimmy Wisman. Not to be taken away from Jimmy Wisman, but after that, it's going to be Nathan Hunt from Shaman's Harvest giving us the breakdown of the soon-to-be-released new Shaman's Harvest album. If you haven't listened to Shaman's Harvest before, go check them out. The 3rd guest of April is returning for his 2nd appearance, is WWE Hall of Famer, former multiple-time World Heavyweight Tag Team Champion, Road Warrior Animal himself, Joe Laurinaitis, and a special 4th guest that I'm still working on right now. But let me tell you, if this happens, you will see Chris come out of the box like a giddy schoolgirl. It's gonna be awesome. But check that out. And also, if you want to do us all a solid here at the network, go check out the newest podcast to the family, Basement Quest. It is my partner in crime, Michael Loki Smith, and producer Eddie Focus, talking about all things gaming, whether it's role-playing games, tabletop games, video games, you name it, they're going to talk about it. And I don't know hardly anything about the subjects they talk about, but I listen. And I have a good time. I learn something new every single week from these guys. So check them out on YouTube or at basementquest.com. It's Basement Quest, all things gaming by 2 really hardcore gamers.
Indeed.
So now, until we see you again next Wednesday, it is time for Corey to either learn a new language or go back to the old standby with the 2 most famous words in C&J Speedway Review history.
Good night.
I saw Eddie's arm just a minute ago.